Hello and welcome back to Disney Journey. On this episode, it's going to be a bit of a rant for this retired Imagineer because, as I'm sure you've seen, there's been some news this week with the announcements that there are going to be some changes because the dominoes are, well, they're falling again in Disneyland, and those affect the positions of power throughout the parks and resorts community over there at Disneyland and the cruise line and experiences like Disney Adventures and the rest of it. Now, it's interesting to note just how this came about. My experience has always been that the people in charge of the Disney parks usually have a tour of duty for about 5 years. And that's about all because frankly, it's a hard job. And at the end of that 5-year term, they either move on or move out. I work with a number of people who are highly qualified, but maybe they weren't paired exactly in the best possible way for their role that they were elevated to. Ken Potrock has left the Disney company. Well, not Disney company per se. He left Disneyland and he's landing a new job. And I'm not really sure how that's going to work for him. But what's interesting to note is who replaced him. And it was a person who I know and have worked with. And he came over from working and leading the cruise ships and Disney experiences in other areas. But this role at Disneyland is going to be very, very different for him because now he's in charge of 36,000 employees and Disney Ford or Disneyland Ford. Now, what's interesting to note about Disneyland Ford was Ken Potrock led the charge on that. And he would go to the Disneyland City Council, he would present the artwork, and all the artwork showed development, theme park development on the other side of Disneyland Drive, all around the two hotels that they currently have. And the new person, well, they have a responsibility, but they weren't the people who represented that vision of the expansion of Disneyland to the government. Now, having said that, the government's already approved it. They are about to break ground on the Avengers Campus. As part of that expansion, that means the red car is about to close forever in just a few days. And that allows the Disneyland park to remove the trolley barn, the red car barn, from the back of the park, which probably won't cause any tears to be shed because, frankly, the red car was never a ride capacity in the park. It was too unreliable. It was deployed too often in the wrong times of the day and seldom in the right times of the day. And even when it was, there were only 2 of those vehicles. And the vehicles ran on city streets, the pathways that all the guests were walking with their strollers. And with the removal of the red car, now Avengers Campus can start construction. And noting that they're going to be starting that for real, that means, frankly, that they're probably looking at a 2-year construction, which really moves the opening into 2028. And that means that they really don't have to set a date for Coco or Avatar well before then. Now, Coco could be fit into the Hollywood backlot, but the Hollywood backlot is also the location where if you wanted to place Avatar anywhere, you'd place it there. But you really can't place Avatar there because it's not big enough. And you really can't expand DCA in that section without building a parking garage. You see where I'm going. Now, they can remove the drop-off to the other side of Harbor Boulevard and build a bridge across without building the parking garage as a short-term fix. And if they did that, they'd be able to take the land that they currently have for the drop-off and taxi and hotel buses and claim that for Avatar. But as I said earlier, they really don't need to do that yet. Not until they get further down the road and get a sense of how successful and how much of a demand impact the expansion of Avengers Campus will make. The way things work at Disney, though, from my experience of over 3 decades as an Imagineer, as a creative director, is the public face isn't always what's built. People say things and they say them with all good intentions, but that doesn't mean that piece of artwork that they shared is the piece of artwork that's accurately built. And it may be the same with Hollywood and its impact and Disneyland Ford. We don't know. If I were to put five on the table right now, I would submit to you that it's more likely that the expansion across the street from Disneyland Drive will be another hotel, not an additional theme park bit. I'll take this moment to congratulate Joe Schott, the former president of Shanghai Disneyland. I know Joe, and I work with him closely on the opening of Shanghai Disneyland and Toy Story Land there at Shanghai. And he's a very gifted and dedicated and well-versed expert in everything Disney as far as the parks and resorts. Under his leadership, he moved Shanghai Disneyland to embrace further the characters of Disney with Toy Story Land, Zootopia, and most recently the transformation of Tribal Table, the restaurant there in Adventure Isle, to make it a further outpost for Duffy and Friends. Now, this individual is someone who is the creative director for that project. And I've worked with her very well in great detail on several projects, both in Glendale and in Shanghai. And she's an expert in all things Duffy. So congratulations to her as well. Now, also congratulations are in order to Andrew Bolstein, who, again, another individual I work with to the opening of Shanghai Disneyland. I mean, many times we'd sit around and talk about how many stanchions did we need, where the trash cans go. And so on that note, I'll bring this episode of Disney Journey to a close and invite you to join me as these changes unroll for us all to look at and hopefully enjoy.